The tree that flavored every American's childhood was made illegal in 1960, not because it was dangerous, but because the DEA discovered what underground chemists could turn it into. Within a single generation, it was erased from American memory. Your great-grandmother knew it. You've probably never heard of it. The tree that flavored childhood, sassafras, was everywhere. Every grandmother in America knew how to brew the roots into a spring tonic. Every corner store sold root beer made from its bark. Every Southern cook kept file powder in the pantry for gumbo. The smell was unmistakable, sweet and spicy, like childhood itself. George Washington drank it. Benjamin Franklin praised it. Thomas Jefferson served it at Monticello. It wasn't exotic or expensive. It was just there, woven into the fabric of American life. Then in 1960, the government made it illegal. The disappearance wasn't slow or gradual. It happened overnight. Root beer companies scrambled to reformulate. Grandmothers stopped brewing their tonics. File powder disappeared from shelves or was quietly replaced. Within a single generation, most Americans forgot sassafras even existed. Your great-grandmother knew how to find the tree, dig the roots, and brew them into medicine. Your grandmother might remember the taste of real root beer. You probably don't even know what the tree looks like. One generation. That's all it took to erase something that had been the part of American culture for centuries. The trees are still out there, growing in forests from Maine to Texas. They didn't go anywhere. We just stopped paying attention. And there's a reason for that. The official story, cancer in a bottle. In 1960, the government told us sassafras was dangerous, but that was only the beginning of the story. The Food and Administration made an announcement. Saffrole, the aromatic oil that gave sassafras its distinctive flavor, caused liver cancer in laboratory rats. The evidence looked damning. Rats given oral doses developed tumors, permanent liver damage, and various types of cancer. Within months, saffrole was banned from all commercially mass-produced foods and beverages. The official narrative was clear. The government was protecting Americans from a dangerous substance. Root beer manufacturers moved fast. Within weeks, root beer labels were being scraped off bottles and replaced with new ones that said artificial flavoring. They switched to petroleum-based flavoring. Some used wintergreen. A few used saffrole-free extract, laboriously processed to remove every trace of the compound. The $500 million root beer industry survived, but traditional sassafras use ended overnight. Your grandmother stopped brewing sassafras tea. File powder vanished from shelves. Herbalists stopped recommending it. The ban was thorough, permanent, and strangely absolute. This wasn't a slow fade, it was an erasure. On paper, the ban made sense. Protect the public from a compound that causes cancer in animals. Standard toxicology protocol. But here's the thing. The way this ban played out, the speed of it, the completeness of it, that should make you ask questions. Because what came later didn't make sense at all. The doses that never made sense. But here's what the government didn't emphasize. Those cancer studies used doses no human would ever consume. The rats in those studies were given amounts equivalent to drinking 32 bottles of root beer every single day for months. Not one bottle, not 5, 32, every day. These were doses absurdly beyond what any grandmother ever brewed in a spring tonic. Beyond what any child ever drank at a soda fountain. Beyond anything resembling traditional use. And here's the comparison that raises eyebrows. Nutmeg contains saffrole, so does black pepper. Cinnamon, star anise, and basil all contain saffrole. In fact, nutmeg contains about 4 times more saffrole than sassafras ever did. None of those were banned. Walk into any grocery store right now. Nutmeg sits on the spice rack with 0 warnings. You can buy it, cook with it, and give it to your kids in eggnog every Christmas. So, why was sassafras singled out when other saffrole-containing plants got a pass? A grandmother in Tennessee kept brewing her spring tonic in secret, convinced the government had it wrong. The doses didn't reflect reality. The selective enforcement didn't make sense. And for decades, nobody questioned it. The science behind the ban was shaky at best, but that didn't matter. Because by the 1970s, sassafras had become something else entirely. Something that had nothing to do with root beer or spring tonics, and everything to do with control. If you're starting to question what else we've been told about plants, food, and tradition, you're not alone. Subscribe and hit the bell because we're digging up more stories the system buried. Next up, what the DEA discovered sealed Sassafras's fate forever. When the DEA discovered what sassafras could become. By the 1970s, underground chemists had figured out something that would seal sassafras's fate forever. Saffrole isn't just an aromatic oil, it's a chemical precursor. With some basic chemistry knowledge and the right equipment, saffrole can be converted into MDA and MDMA, the substances known as ecstasy and Molly. In a college chemistry lab in California, a graduate student realized he was looking at the molecular structure of childhood and the recipe for ecstasy at the same time. The synthesis wasn't particularly complex. Extract saffrole from sassafras oil, run it through a few chemical steps, and suddenly you have a Schedule I controlled substance. This discovery happened right as the war on substances was ramping up, and the Substance Enforcement Administration suddenly had a massive problem on their hands. Sassafras trees grew wild across the entire eastern United States, from Maine to Florida, from the Atlantic coast to eastern Texas. Anywhere, everywhere, anyone with basic chemistry knowledge could walk into a forest, harvest the roots, extract the oil, and start cooking MDMA. The DEA couldn't ban the tree. It's native, it's everywhere. Attempting to eradicate it would be impossible. But they had something better. They already had the perfect cover. The Food and Administration had given them the foundation back in 1960 with the cancer ban. Now, the DEA had every reason to make sure sassafras never came back. The cancer studies became a convenient justification for permanent substance enforcement. A plant that had been used safely for thousands of years wasn't dangerous because of what it was. It was dangerous because of what it could become. How the DEA made sure it stayed gone. So the DEA did something smarter. They made the tree useless without banning it at all. The Substance Enforcement Administration classified saffrole as a List 1 chemical. That's the same category as pseudoephedrine, the cold medicine ingredient used to make methamphetamine. Today, it's unlawful to possess or distribute saffrole if you know it will be used to manufacture MDMA. The enforcement is real. In 2015, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police raided a clandestine lab and seized 1,500 kilograms of sassafras oil. News reports said it could be converted into 4.2 million MDMA tablets. That's the scale they're dealing with. Think about what happened here. The cancer ban took sassafras off shelves in 1960. The DEA classification buried it permanently in the 1970s. A tree used safely for 10,000 years didn't suddenly become dangerous. It became useful to the wrong people, and that was enough. The Food and Administration provided the science. The DEA provided the enforcement. Together, they erased it. One plant eliminated from American culture, while black pepper, cinnamon, and basil all contain saffrole and sit ignored on your spice rack. The difference? You can't efficiently make MDMA from grocery store spices. But before all of this happened, there were people who knew this tree intimately. Drop a comment and tell me, do you think this ban was really about safety or about control? And here's the bigger question. What other plants have been erased from our culture for reasons that have nothing to do with protecting us? Let me know below. Now, let's go back 10,000 years before any of this happened. Before we forgot, 10,000 years of knowledge. Long before the DEA existed, Native Americans across dozens of tribes knew this tree, and they knew exactly how to use it. Indigenous peoples from Maine to Florida used sassafras for millennia. Different tribes had different names for it. The Timucua in Florida called it Pawan. The Nipmuc peoples called it Sasank-Pamuk. Every part of the tree held medicine. The roots were brewed into tea for fevers, colds, and blood purification. The leaves were crushed into poultices for wounds, sprains, and insect bites. The bark was chewed for dental health. Its natural oils eliminated bacteria and freshened breath long before the invention of toothpaste. But the Choctaw discovered something else. If you dried the leaves and ground them into powder, they became the perfect thickener for soups and stews. They called it a file. This one ingredient would later define Louisiana Creole gumbo, a dish that literally exists because of indigenous sassafras knowledge. The Choctaw didn't know their discovery would one day be classified alongside methamphetamine ingredients. Sassafras wasn't just medicine or spice, it was survival food. When English colonists arrived at Roanoke in 1585, they reported one brutal truth. During periods of starvation, settlers survived by boiling sassafras leaves. The mucilage in the leaves provided calories when nothing else would grow. This wasn't folklore, it was practical knowledge that worked, tested and refined over thousands of years. And it didn't take long for European settlers to realize something. Back home, people would pay anything for it, when Europe couldn't get enough. In the early 1600s, sassafras bark was so valuable that ships crossed the Atlantic for nothing else. When the first sassafras shipments reached Europe in the late 1500s, they arrived at the perfect moment. A syphilis epidemic was sweeping the continent. Doctors had no cure, patients were desperate, and here came reports from the new world of a tree whose roots could purify blood and cure disease. The aromatic smell alone was intoxicating. Legend says Christopher Columbus knew he had reached North America simply because he could smell sassafras on the wind from his ship. By 1602, demand was so intense that a single shipment of sassafras bark weighed an entire ton. In England, apothecaries sold it as a dark medicinal beverage. It was prescribed for everything: fevers, digestive issues, skin diseases, rheumatic pain. And it worked. Not because it cured syphilis, it didn't. But sassafras tea actually does have anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties that indigenous peoples had known for millennia. The price skyrocketed. Sassafras bark sold for its weight in gold. Europeans paid fortunes for it then. Today, possessing the extract in quantity can land you on a DEA watch list. Captain Martin Pring sailed from Bristol, England in 1603 with one mission: find sassafras. His expedition journals describe good groves of the tree along the coasts of Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. He filled his ship and returned to England a wealthy man. For the next 50 years, sassafras was colonial America's second largest export after tobacco. But there was a problem, and it nearly ended the tree completely. The harvest that nearly ended it. The problem with sassafras wasn't that people wanted it. It was that they stripped entire forests to get it. The bark was the most valuable part. It contained the highest concentration of saffrole oil. But harvesting the bark ended the tree. Colonists would find a grove, strip every accessible tree, and move on. There was no replanting, no sustainability, just extraction. By 1626, just 24 years after that first ton-sized shipment, English colonists could not meet their export quotas. They had stripped nearly every accessible sassafras tree along the coasts to extinction. The same pattern played out wherever Europeans settled. Find the tree, harvest it to its end. Watch the supply vanish. But sassafras, like so many indigenous plants, does not surrender easily. The roots sent up new shoots. Seeds stayed buried in the soil, waiting. Even when colonists thought they had ended a grove completely, the trees came back, slowly, quietly, without permission. It's a pattern that repeats throughout history. A valuable plant, unsustainable harvest, near collapse, slow recovery. The tree survived colonial greed, not because people decided to protect it, but because nature is more resilient than human exploitation. Colonists nearly ended it with axes and saws. Centuries later, the government would finish what they started. By the 1840s, sassafras had recovered enough that American entrepreneurs discovered something brilliant. And Americans were about to turn it into the most recognizable flavor in the country, right before the government took it all away. Root beer was born in a backyard. By the 1840s, Americans had figured out something brilliant. You could turn sassafras root into a fizzy beverage that tasted like summer itself. Root beer was born, not in a laboratory, not in a factory. In backyards and kitchens across America, people learned to extract the oils from sassafras roots, mix them with sugar and yeast, and create a sweet, effervescent beverage that tasted like nothing else on earth. By the turn of the 20th century, sassafras had woven itself completely into the fabric of American culture. Every corner store sold root beer. Every grandmother knew how to brew sassafras tea as a spring tonic. Every Southern cook kept file powder in the pantry for gumbo. The smell and taste became synonymous with childhood, innocence, Americana. As common as apple pie, Philadelphia pharmacist Charles Hires turned it into a commercial empire. Hires root beer became a household name, marketed as a healthy alternative to alcohol. The beverage caught on everywhere. It wasn't just popular, it was iconic. This was the world before 1960. Sassafras everywhere, taken for granted, assumed to be permanent. Nobody thought it could disappear. It had been here for centuries. It grew wild. It was free. It was ours. But your great-grandmother wasn't just brewing a tasty beverage. She was brewing medicine that actually worked. And that's exactly why it had to disappear. What we actually lost, the medicine. Your great-grandmother didn't brew sassafras tea because of folklore. She brewed it because it worked. Sassafras root tea was traditionally used as a blood purifier, a spring tonic to thin the blood after winter. Old-timers swore by it. They'd dig the roots in early spring, brew them into a reddish tea, and consume it for weeks. Modern analysis shows they were onto something. Sassafras contains compounds with genuine anti-inflammatory properties. That's not folklore, that's chemistry. The leaves contain mucilage, the same soothing substance found in slippery elm and marshmallow root. This explains why Native Americans used it for digestive issues, and why chewing sassafras bark soothed sore throats. The aromatic compounds have antimicrobial properties. That's why sassafras twigs were used as toothbrushes for centuries. And here's the part nobody talks about. Recent studies suggest that saffrole in small amounts may have protective effects against certain cancers, not cause them. Protect against them. You won't find those studies promoted by regulatory agencies. Research on sassafras requires approval. Approval requires removing the substance precursor stigma. And removing that stigma threatens enforcement budgets worth billions. So, the research doesn't happen. The studies don't get funded. The potential benefits stay buried under decades of prohibition. Meanwhile, the tree keeps growing. The compounds keep existing. The medicine waits. But sassafras wasn't just medicine. It was food. And what we lost there might be even more significant. What we actually lost. The food file powder isn't just a thickener. It's the reason Louisiana gumbo exists. Dried sassafras leaves contain vitamin A, vitamin C, calcium, and manganese. When you grind them into powder, they create a silky thickness that transforms soups and stews. This wasn't a random discovery. The Choctaw knew it. And when West African enslaved people arrived in Louisiana, they recognized something familiar. Their culinary traditions melded with Native American knowledge and European influences. File became central to Creole gumbo. The dish literally would not exist without sassafras. Traditional gumbo relies on file powder for its distinctive texture and subtle earthy flavor. You can make gumbo with okra instead, but it's not the same. The file is the original, the authentic ingredient. And for generations, every Louisiana cook knew where to find it. Sassafras gave us more than just gumbo thickener. Those twigs people chewed for dental care? Natural toothbrushes before corporations convinced us we needed tubes of petroleum-based paste. The antimicrobial properties actually worked. One plant provided medicine, flavor, nutrition, and tradition. All of it erased. First by Food and Administration regulation based on questionable science. Then by Substance Enforcement Administration enforcement prioritizing substance war budgets over cultural heritage. The culinary loss alone is staggering. But it's the knowledge disappearing that hurts most. Because the trees are still out there, growing, waiting, offering their gifts to anyone who remembers. And they're easier to find than you might think. The tree that refused to disappear. Today, sassafras trees still grow wild across 20 states. And they don't care what the DEA thinks. You can walk through any deciduous forest from Maine to Texas and find them. In fall, their leaves turn brilliant colors: yellow, burgundy, orange. They're instantly recognizable by their 3 distinct leaf shapes. Some leaves are oval, some are shaped like mittens, some have 3 lobes. No other tree does that. Once you know what to look for, you'll start seeing them everywhere. The trees don't care about regulations or classifications. They just keep growing, sending up shoots, dropping seeds, spreading slowly through the understory of American forests like they have for thousands of years. Here's what most people don't know. It's not prohibited to possess the tree or harvest it for personal use. The restrictions apply to commercial sale, import, and distribution of saffrole-containing products. Some people still make sassafras tea from forage roots. They know to use it sparingly, traditionally, not in the massive doses that harmed laboratory rats. The way it was always meant to be used. You can't buy real sassafras products commercially anymore. What you can find online is saffrole-free sassafras extract, processed, stripped, diluted. It's not the same. The compound that made sassafras valuable for millennia has been removed to comply with regulations. The trees are still here, still recognizable, still offering what they always have. But this isn't really about one plant. The pattern? We keep ignoring sassafras isn't the only plant to disappear this way. It's part of a pattern most people never notice. When plants offer alternatives to pharmaceuticals, they get scrutinized. When they can't be patented, they get ignored. When they threaten control systems, they get banned. It's not always obvious. Sometimes the justification is safety. Sometimes it's environmental protection. Sometimes it's substance enforcement. But the result is always the same. Traditional knowledge disappears. Natural alternatives vanish. People forget. When something is free, abundant, and effective, it doesn't fit neatly into systems built on scarcity and regulation. Sassafras was all three. It was a natural compound anyone could access, a flavor no corporation could own, a tradition that didn't require permission from authorities. You could walk into a forest, dig up roots, and have medicine, have food, have culture, all for free. The cancer studies provided scientific cover. The substance precursor designation provided legal justification. Together, they accomplished what no amount of forest clearing ever could. Complete erasure. Your great-grandmother knew how to find sassafras, prepare it, and use it safely. Your grandmother might remember the taste of real root beer. You probably don't even know what the tree looks like when you walk past it in the woods. One generation. That's all it takes to erase 10,000 years of knowledge. And with every year that passes, fewer people remain who remember. The knowledge we're losing, every year, fewer people remember. And the elders who grew up consuming sassafras tea are passing away. Recipes are being lost with each passing generation. The knowledge of when to harvest, how much to use, which parts work best, all of it disappearing. Children are growing up thinking root beer comes from laboratories, not roots in the ground. They'll never taste the real thing, never smell fresh sassafras bark, never understand what their great-grandparents took for granted. The irony is that sassafras could have a role in modern medicine. Its anti-inflammatory compounds, its antimicrobial properties, its use as a digestive aid. All of this deserves research, but research requires regulatory approval. Approval requires removing the substance precursor stigma, and removing that stigma threatens enforcement budgets worth billions. So the research doesn't happen. The studies don't get funded. Scientists can't touch it without navigating a maze of restrictions. Meanwhile, the tree grows quietly in forests across America, producing leaves every spring, offering its gifts to anyone who remembers. But remembering requires someone to teach you, and there are fewer teachers every year. The knowledge isn't completely gone yet, but it's slipping away fast, like water through cupped hands. And once it's gone, getting it back will be nearly impossible. But here's what they couldn't erase, no matter how hard they tried. What the regulations couldn't erase. Here's what they couldn't erase. The trees, the roots, the seeds sleeping in the soil. Sassafras is still here, it never left. It's waiting, not for permission, just for recognition. All it asks is that we look past the regulations and see what was always there. A tree that Native Americans trusted for 10,000 years. A tree that colonists depended on for survival and profit. A tree that flavored America's childhood with root beer on summer afternoons and spring tonics that grandmothers swore by. It never stopped offering its gifts. We just stopped paying attention, stopped looking, stopped asking the elders how they used it. We let bureaucracy and enforcement budgets tell us what was safe and what wasn't, what we could use and what we couldn't. We traded knowledge for convenience and lost something irreplaceable in the process. The trees are still growing in forests from Maine to Texas, still sending up those distinctively shaped leaves every spring, still dropping seeds that wait in the soil for decades, still offering medicine, food, and connection to anyone willing to learn. Next time you walk through a forest in fall, look for the three shaped leaves: yellow, burgundy, orange. Once you see it, you'll never unsee it. And maybe, just maybe, you'll ask an elder what they remember. Maybe some traditions are worth bringing back. Maybe some knowledge is worth fighting to preserve. Not because it's rebellious or dangerous, but because it's ours, because it works, because it connects us to something older and deeper than pharmaceutical companies and government agencies. The tree is still here. The question is whether we'll remember it before the last person who knew it is gone. Next time you walk through a forest, look for those three-shaped leaves. If you find one, you've found what the government tried to erase. Subscribe for more stories they don't want you to remember, like if sassafras deserves to come back.